Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and we are humbled to have with us now James Holloway from the Swickard Automotive Group. And James has been a staunch advocate for fixed operations, in particular parts, and growing business outside of the four walls of the dealership. James, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, we learned so much from you, and I learned so much from the timely things that you post on LinkedIn as well. So if you haven't seen James Holloway's posts, everybody, you need to follow him on LinkedIn. James, you and I were having a conversation just now about the huge changes in our industry and the margins, as an example, in new vehicles that are compressed right now. We all know the state of the inventory with the chip shortage. It doesn't look like it's going away. Next month or the month after that might be with us for a while. And the focus being now on fixed operations and certainly all the opportunities in parts. So, James, let's get started.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at the big picture here. So with fixed operations, you're looking at the service department and the parts department, and together they make a great team. To me, that's like a double home run. I got a home run on the parts side. I got a home run on the service side, and that's a great place to be. And one of the things I've said in the past is that, if the service department is breaking sales records, so is the parts department. However, if the service department is not breaking sales records, neither is the parts department. And if you're a parts manager, it's not a great place to be. So there's a lot of options out there that parts managers can take. And if you look at the dealer financial statement, you're going to see a lot of different revenue streams coming through parts. You're going to see customer pay. You're going to see warranty. You're going to see internal. You're going to see wholesale. Some dealers are getting into the e-commerce game. So these are the things that we can look at. These are things that we can do. And quite frankly, there's a lot of dealers out there that are really, and we're one of them with Swickard Automotive Group with regards to the e-commerce and the wholesale side of the parts business. So,
James, you and I were talking earlier. What's the average age of vehicles that are on the road today? Do you know?
Yeah, it's actually, according to NADA, it's 12 years old. Now think about this. Wow. So if you look at a breakdown of repair orders in the service department, one of the things that is the primary driver is the manufacturer's warranty, right? Mm-hmm. So in any car, in any given instance, it's usually 336. If it's a luxury brand like Audi, Mercedes-Benz, it's usually 4 years, 50,000 miles. So what happens to those cars when the warranty expires? They're still in the market. They're just not coming back to the dealership. So there's an opportunity there for parts. If I'm the parts manager, or if I work with the parts manager, I simply say, we're going to follow that repair, whether it's across the street, across town, or across the country.
Wow. And you know what? That most dealerships, don't even think outside the box to do that, James.
And I'll be fair to say, a lot of car dealers, they don't get into the car business to sell parts, right? They get into the car business because they want to sell cars. And right now, the typical the historical cycle of getting cars in a timely manner from the manufacturer, we've hit a road bump, right? There's been a big hiccup. It's rippled throughout the industry. Right now, dealers are focused more than ever on acquisition or acquiring used cars by whatever means possible. And guess what? When those cars get traded in, what's the first thing it's probably going to be replaced on? It's going to be tires. It's going to be cosmetic items. It has to get a service. So again, these are all parts related things. So.
Yeah, and you have a great perspective on the industry, and we appreciate that. We need to hear more of this, okay, in terms of parts and the opportunity. What would you say is the primary retention tool that service managers have today, James?
Well, it's funny. I always say it's warranty, but the other thing is probably if the service, tires is a big one.
Okay.
And I just posted, I think today or maybe it was yesterday. New car dealers are only getting a fraction a small fraction of the billion-dollar tire industry that's going on right now. And that's the easiest way to retain customers. And a lot of dealers are like, well, I don't want to sell tires. They're very labor intensive. We don't make any money. My advisors are not really excited about tires.
They take a lot of room.
They take up a lot. They're smelly. All these reasons why they don't want to sell tires. But you know what, Ted? The truth is if we don't sell them the tires, somebody else is. And that whole around the wheel business that comes with it, the brakes, the alignments, the suspension, rough run situations, all of that comes together with it. And guess what? That's all customer pay. It's not warranty. It's not internal. That's all customer pay. So.
Yeah, and you know what, it's been said. And by the way, I know what some of the excuses are, because when I'm in dealership, I hear them all the time from managers, and of course, stocking the right tires and so on and so forth. What can parts managers do right now to grow sales, James?
Well, here's the thing. It all comes down to resources, infrastructure, and bandwidth. Okay, so I will be the first to tell anybody that wants to listen to me that the parts department in your dealership is an untapped gold mine. Okay. It does not exist only or solely to sell parts to cars that have repair orders written in the service drive. A good place to look at would be selling mechanical. So I call it, Ted, I call it the big three. Wholesale mechanical,
okay,
wholesale collision, e-commerce. Okay, those three things right there are more than enough for any parts manager or any parts department to grapple with and to get into the business, because when you do, you're going to find that you're going to sell deeper into the repair estimates of these cars that are involved in collisions, or you're going to sell parts to the cars that don't show up at your dealership. They're going to be across the street at the independent service provider. I've said it once, I said it a million times. If they don't buy the part from us, they're going to buy it somewhere else. So we have to be in the marketplace where parts are being bought and sold. And that also applies to the e-commerce business.
Many years ago, and this is many years ago when I worked in dealership at a Ford dealer, the dealer I worked for was not in the wholesale parts business, and was certainly not in the body shop parts business. I know that. And I asked questions about why, but they had a parts manager, James, who'd been there a long time. And I recently went back within the last 12 months to that dealership to see how they were doing. And the dealer couldn't wait, James, to take me on a tour of the parts department, because he'd hired a new parts manager about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, they had put in a second floor, and now they had parts for the collision centers. They had trucks on the road. They were doing wholesale. And the dealer was bragging to me, James, about how that business has made such a huge difference in his bottom line, and how it had been neglected for all those years. And now they were just starting to get in the parts business. And he was talking to me about e-commerce, and it was music to my ears. I couldn't believe it.
Well, that's great to hear, but in my experience and all my travels and all the parts managers, people, if you were to create a persona of a parts manager, here's kind of like what it might be. Now, I'm in no means stereotyping, but typically parts managers are very analytical people. They're really good with numbers. They're really good at managing their inventory, because there's a lot of parts coming in every day and there's a lot of parts going out every day, and we have to account for every single penny. And that right there is a full-time job. And I kind of call this the 4 core competencies. Inventory is just one part of the equation. The next one is going to be managing people. So we talked about this earlier. When you're managing people, especially new hires, we have to create a training path for them. They have to be mentored. They have to be coached. And when I talk about people, I'm not only talking about employees, but I'm also talking about vendors, things of that nature. Then the other thing here is going to be sales. So if I want to sell parts, I used to tell my dealers, listen, the parts manager role, we should change the title. And they said, change it to what? I said, put the word sales in between parts and manager. So from now on, this person's going to be the parts sales manager, because we're going to put on our selling hat, and we're going to be focused on selling parts. We're not going to be order takers, because let's talk about it. When at a dealership, parts doesn't sell parts.
Mm-hmm.
The service advisor sells the job, right? What we do is we provide a quote and we give it to the service advisor, and they're the ones who are actually selling it. So for all these years, the parts department, we've become kind of like the McDonald's order takers, of parts orders. Would you like fries with that? And it takes a whole different mindset to be sales focused and to sell outside of the four walls. But the thing is when you step foot outside of the four walls of the dealership, the potential is absolutely unlimited. So, and there are a lot of dealers out there who have they've taken wholesale and treated it as it should be, which is a standalone business. It has specialized employees doing specialized tasks and functions. But the funny thing is that money, that revenue stream that we've created, happens to flow through the parts department.
Now, James, you do this right now, okay? I mean, how much more can a parts manager sell, like you just said, outside of those four walls of the dealership? Just give us a little bit on that.
In terms of selling, I mean, listen, it takes, I'm going to talk about wholesale here. It takes infrastructure. You got to have certain building blocks in place. But like I said earlier, you have to be in the marketplace, and in the collision, and even in the mechanical repair world, you have to be, you have to have what we call parts procurement platforms, because the days of the shops calling the parts department for parts and availability on a part, those days are gone. Everything is all driven by software now. And a lot of times these shops can get that information on their own. And one of the things I've always noticed is the fact that there's always tons of inbound phone calls coming into the parts department, and we're answering the phones, and we're giving the part numbers, and we're giving the quotes, but nobody ever follows up on it. And so I tell the parts managers, like, I don't want you or your team to be used as a parts quoting system, right?
Right.
So they can go buy it somewhere else. I want you to actually sell the parts. I want you to measure, what the conversion rate is on quotes versus what we actually sell. So, and if somebody's not going to buy it from you, let's set up that customer on on Repair Link, and they can log in 24 hours a day and get their own parts estimates and look at the diagrams, and same thing on the collision side. There's all kinds of things going on the collision side right now because it's all driven by insurance companies.
Yes.
And then on the e-commerce side, you can build a website to sell parts. A lot of parts managers don't realize that you have to have a monthly marketing budget and an ad spend. But when you do, and you have that paid traffic, eventually over time, the paid ad spend amount's going to go down while your organic traffic is going to go up, and you're going to start selling parts to people that don't even live in the same state that you're in, and we've seen it with our dealership group as well. So
what percentage of new car dealers, in your opinion, are actually selling parts online?
Less than 10%.
Wow.
Less than 10%.
Wow.
And here's another mind-boggling fact. Parts on eBay are sold at the rate of 3 per second.
Wow.
That's, and so
mind-boggling.
That's a whole nother realm. That's a whole nother platform. We don't have time for it today, but I can talk about eBay because I used to sell on eBay, and I can tell you it works. And what I used it for when I was a parts director is to get rid of stuff that it was just going to get written off anyway. And trust me, it works.
Well, James, let's plan on coming back and having you at the next Fixed Ops Roundtable. I know you're on a panel as well at this event, but we want to hear more about parts, want to hear more about your expertise, because I think a lot of folks in our audience can benefit from that. James, if anybody in our audience wants to reach out to you, how do they get a hold of you?
You can call me, you can text me, you can FaceTime me, you can Zoom me. You can any of those things will work. Down at the bottom is a little ticker with my contact information. I love to talk about parts. I talked to a random parts manager just the other day about selling parts online, and I think he came away with an aha moment. So 702-375-0167. My email is james.holloway@swickard.com. I work for Swickard Automotive Group. We're growing by leaps and bounds, and we're seeing great success at Swickard Automotive Group with what we do.
Great. James Holloway, everybody, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.